Hi guys, welcome back. I know we're running 20 minutes late, but we will be able to catch this up. I'm now going to welcome to stage the most amount of people ever on a conference. So we've got Todd DiCaprio, Paul Grossman, Paul Gerard, Iran, Hugh Price, and Chris Trimper. So, all come off your cameras. We may have to, he's already got his beer. Todd, what time is it in Philly? Are you ready for the beer?
I'm not allowed to officially start it yet. It's 14:20 here in Philadelphia.
See, it's 7 p.m. somewhere, so we're still waiting for Iran to appear.
I think the last time Hugh and I and Jonathan were all together, we were in London, and I think it was some porn star martinis, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not mistaken. It was a good night. I think that was when we actually got to the point where we couldn't get off Canary Wharf because everything had closed. So yeah, there's is that a beer from you, Chris? What time is it where you are?
No, I'm cheating. This is just a drink in a bottle.
Looks pretty effective to me. Welcome, Iran. Sorry for your yes, your session will be on next after the discussion panel, but how could we miss out on having these amazing people as part of a panel discussion at this event? And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take off the Q&A because I think, it will just, I can ask some questions on there, but actually it'll share more real estate for everybody to enjoy the video a little bit more. So first of all, I think it's probably worth introducing everybody. I'm happy to do it, or if you want to do a quick intro, it's completely up to you.
I'll defer to you, Jonathan.
Go for it. Just shout the names out, Jonathan, and we'll do the.
Okay, so I'll obviously start with Hugh. It's probably the easiest to start with. I've known Hugh for many years now and worked side by side with him. He's probably got more stories on me than anybody else. He's
Really?
Incredibly successful entrepreneur and probably thought leader in this space is kind of just immense. Obviously, he's just spun off a new company, I think it's his third company now, or fourth company, Curiosity Software, which we've talked about today, and Wayne's blown our minds. But yeah, he's at it again, revolutionizing the industry, and ironically, just working with everybody else who's around here. So I know you work with Perfecto already. You've got a relationship with those, and I'm sure Todd will have sent you his SDK before you actually finish this meeting. So,
that was Jonathan. That's like supposed to be 5 seconds, right? Yeah, I think he's introduced me. Todd, you're next. Quick.
Well, Hugh, do you want to introduce Todd? Then we can just make it really interesting. Do you want to give him an intro?
No, it's going to involve lots of drinking. I have no idea what he's doing recently. I don't want drinking stories. Todd, what are you working on? I haven't been in touch with you for about 6 months, and a lot changes.
So I work for Splunk, and I am a engineer. So I get to work with our top 1,000 customers, building out new capabilities that they've been wanting to have for a while. As a result, again, small team, about 7 of us, and we're really focused on that tip of the spear. So I know Chris and I have been going back and forth on a couple things, but it's been a lot of fun. Get to do some of these types of evangelism conversations. I've got a session coming up shortly as well that'll have some other details focusing on data and what it's meant for me over my career. Chris, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Chris. From anything that Jonathan didn't already introduce me for this morning, I've been involved in software quality assurance for many years, and functional test automation is an absolute passion of mine. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be part of this and just see where the world's growing to. To the man with the watches, who's there for me?
Is that me?
Or there. Sorry, Paul.
Okay, well, people had enough of me yesterday, so I'm not going to say very much. I might be the black sheep in this group, in that I think tools are boring, and because they don't do what I want. So I'm just a grumpy old man in the group.
With watches that don't work.
Hi everyone. I know everyone here on the panel, and by the way, Paul, my middle name is Paul as well, just so you know. So we can get. Yeah, I'm just sticking with Iran. It's easier. But I'm an evangelist myself, over 21 years in this software development and testing. Wrote a few books about it. Excited to be here. Always excited to work with Jonathan and the team. So bring it on. Challenge us.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start off with, what you've enjoyed about Test Festival, and maybe one of your favorite questions or something you want to bring up, just to see. And I'm going to throw it at Todd first, because I think you want to check out Todd's session. He's kind of really gone at the ingestion of the data and the stuff that you guys would absolutely love. But Todd, what's on your mind? What are the things that I know you sent me a message the other day on Facebook, and you just was like, your brain has exploded. What is it, what you're thinking about at the moment, which is going to just change the industry?
I think, as we look, and some of the things that I've seen through the agenda just of this conference, is really around how is it that people are moving. It's kind of crazy. We're still talking about manual testing over here, but I think with everything that's converged over the years, and again, for all of us on this panel, living through everything from, functional testing to manual to performance to security, all of those different elements and the evolutions that we've seen, whether it be, I hate to say it, but a client server like architecture all the way out to a cloud native, and then some of the new endpoint pieces that are popping up left, right, and center. But, as we think about that, testing thread, how is it that people are doing it? What is the value? So again, Paul, I'm sorry, the tools piece is the how. The more important part, though, is probably, what is the value to our business? And our business could be somebody internal, could be a CIO, or they could be our customers. And, as we think about how is it that we're ensuring and validating that these capabilities that we deliver are working as designed and expected for our customers, that's what I see as kind of the big question mark. And I think we've done a nice job in the conference so far in, providing some perspectives on that. And I know there's more to come, not only in this conference, but also in future conferences, and looking really across, how about specifically within DevOps? How about other, DevSecOps? How about, again, all of these other spaces, but how can we highlight some of those key learnings across industries, verticals, et cetera?
Nice. So I think this leads nicely on to Hugh's vision around, Hugh and Wayne's vision around open test platform, right? Is starting to think about that data ingestion and action from it. So do you want to just give us a bit about your vision, the next big thing, Hugh?
I mean, yeah, I kind of hate the word testing in it. It's open dev, isn't it? It's just like, we're all talking about grumpy old men here, Paul. I'm grumpier than you. I just think this hammering on about testing, it's about critical thinking, it's about solving problems, it's about coming at things from a different angle, it's about plugging stuff together. There's so much clever stuff out there. I mean, now I'm working with linear algebra to work our way back from the expected results up through systems to put all the data in the right place instead of trying to put it in from the other way around, So I think, and it's about the development. It is about the requirements. It is about the actually getting those requirements earlier. It is about being able to detect slight patterns in language. It's about sentiment monitoring on Slack channels. What's the stress levels in the team? It's about all these kind of interesting ways to look at solving problems. It's not the tool. I just think that, how many conferences we've been to, and I ask 1,000 testers, how do you know if a test has passed? And I get total silence, for about 5 minutes while people are terrified of answering that question. I just think people have got to start using this fantastic tech. I mean, and the thing that has changed is that we are not testing these clunky systems anymore. They're so fast moving. And unless people can kind of introduce a much more interesting level of thinking and problem solving and applying all those types of techniques to humans, as well as being able to bolt the tech together, because we can bolt tech together really quickly. What we can't get people to do is have the imagination to apply that to problems in their world.
No, definitely, and I know Iran's nodding, and I guess I'm not going to point to any of the accelerating software quality and AI and machine learning book, but part of it is can you build on what Hugh said? What are you seeing? Because you're starting to use ML against, trying to find the needle in the haystack for large amounts of results coming through. What are you seeing, Iran?
So I see a lot of things, and by the way, what you were saying, I love it because, and I was nodding because the entire technology, the mobile and the web, and Angie Jones was talking earlier, about the complexities that we see. And okay, you have the tool, it's fine, but you need to really be smart about, okay, how do you really connect everything? How you can test these end-to-end scenarios? And this is not something that the tool can do for you. Think about, I'm just going to take an iOS application these days, okay? iOS applications today can be native, can be hybrid, can be split into application clips, which is kind of a subset of a web application or a progressive web running on an iOS device. Okay, so I have Appium. So what? Appium doesn't teach me how to do all these connections, the logical things that enable me to think like my end user, connecting all the dots, making sure that I'm testing all these different connection points between, the login screen and the web application interface and the payments and the different sensors that you are interacting with. This is not Appium, or this is not open source versus commercial. This is how you do smart, intelligent testing, and it requires skill set. I scanned a bit through the questions that we have on Slido, and someone was asking, how do I get started with test automation? Okay, that's kind of it's a very wide range question, but obviously you need the tool, but you also need kind of the creativity and being smart and thinking sometimes like the end user would think, understanding the project requirements, understanding testing as well, because when you're establishing a test automation foundation, you need to build it for the future as well. It's not just for this sprint or not just for this iteration, it's for the next few sections as well. So it's a full theory, but again, I just wanted to acknowledge what you were saying. It's about being intelligent, being smart, and really making the most out of the tools to really get you to where you want to be.
Hey, Jonathan. This is Paul Grossman over here, the Dark Arts Wizard, and I think my video may not be working, but I'm not quite sure.
Try and get you doing, but I know you'll be perfect to answer this question.
I just wanted to add in with Aaron about the creativity that's required to be a test automation engineer. A lot of people out there, they get their IT degrees. I actually got my degree at the Savannah College of Art and Design. And I get, sometimes when I bring that up, I get, a little joking, like, what kind of IT school is that? It's actually a feeder school for Pixar, and our math classes were just off the hook to do this sort of stuff. It was kind of a natural progression. And creativity is definitely something that's helped me in my career on getting test automation and getting as far as I have in the last 20 years.
Thanks, Paul. And I think I'll probably throw to Chris finally on our All-Star panel, because we did joke yesterday with the, if Chris can do it, anyone can do it. And you kind of wrote a few lines of code and then ran a whole stack of visual testing against it. It'd be great to kind of get that idea of, is there a toolkit, and, when you do, and you are smart about the use case for that particular tool chain, you can unlock that power very quickly, as you demonstrated yesterday.
No, that's absolutely true. And I'd like to borrow from what Paul was saying. And, in my career, a lot of people are like, oh, how'd you get started? And it's less about, I don't want to put down any degrees, and that's not what I'm saying, but it's more about your creative problem-solving mind. So being able to creatively think outside the box and develop ideas. Artists take raw materials and they build just absolutely amazing things out of them. And to be able to do that illustrates that creative mind, that problem-solving capability. It's just something you can't advertise too much, and it's just something that works so well.
So the problem is actually trying to get other people to envision your vision. That's the real problem. I mean, the number of demos that I give that are just it's exactly what they need. But unless it is so pinned into the processes that the people are using every single day, trying to get people to change a process or a mindset is just the hardest part of the job. So then you have to go and build almost their entire the way that they work and then show a tweak to it and go, oh, okay, I get it now. So I mean, that is probably the biggest struggle, is, you know, my arm waving, as you're familiar. I'm probably not as bad as you, Jonathan, but I do a lot of arm waving. You know, it's just really hard trying to get people to think, you know, oh, he's followed the ISTQB process. So what? Who cares? You know, I mean, why are you testing? Is there a box? You know, why are we thinking about outside it? You know, is there a box in the woods? You know, I mean, you know, I just think that that's really the problem in terms of communicating how and why and what. You know, do we need to test this at all? You know, is it relevant? You know, I mean, that's probably the number one thing, isn't it? Why bother? You know, what's the downside? Have we got a risk profile? You know, I think that's really the kind of stuff that people should really be thinking about. You know, it's an infinite, you know, 2 times 2, you know, 2 to the power 6 factorial. That's it. You're done. You know, and that's 6 switches. So forget it. You know, it has to, and just saying the word machine learning, it's such a cop out. You know, you know, I just think it's you know, without an understanding of the information that's in there and the relevance of that information, and also the quality of the information. I mean, you've heard me say this before. You know, what's the most common reason for a bug? You know, and they all sit there, and it's actually the thing that's on the top of the list. You know, because people are too lazy to pick the second thing in the list. You know, so how the hell can you rely on information like that? You know, what you can rely on is maybe looking at how people's chatter is going. You know, if they're chatting and you're getting stress, there's probably a good chance there's going to be some bugs in that release. So let's just monitor that and forget about all the other stuff. You know, so just think randomly, people.
So am I allowed?
Yeah, you can. I'll let you in. And obviously, it's, you know, we've talked about sentiment analysis and stuff like that on chat feeds, and you know, I think that is a really strong point. And you know, and Paul, well, I'm going to hand over the baton to you because I know you want to do a short spin, but you know, you're kind of, well, everything's just logistics. You know, when it comes to tooling, you know, I think, and part of what we've been trying to do with things like TK Base, right, is to kind of say that these are interchangeable tools, right? It's not a one size fits all, but you know, this kind of, as kind of paraphrasing you for a second, but this, you know, trying to solve problems with technology which are human problems is kind of where we're at. So, you know, what's your viewpoint on kind of the state of the nation then?
Well, I think where I would come from is I wrote my first automated test in the 1980s. It might be 88 or 89, thereabouts. It was in a terribly crude tool, whatever. And my frustration, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't like tools. I just think they're not where they should have been. We've had getting on for 30 something years, and I still feel distanced from the people who are building these products, because as a tester, I'm a developer really, but I test a lot. So, you know, when I test, I think a certain way, and I think, I'm not saying I'm doing it the right way, but the thought process in my head, I've tried to capture in this thing I call a new model. And I can say exactly where test execution tools happen. I can say exactly where modeling happens. I can say exactly where we gather information from our sources, and then we challenge because we think that's a bit screwy or ambiguous, whatever. And what I try to get people to do is think about how they think about testing, and then use that knowledge. And the model I've got, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it gives you a little map that you can say, and this is where I need to make these critical decisions in my thought processes. And it's not a sequential thing, it's an event-driven thing. You know, so a flowchart doesn't help me in terms of understanding how I think. It's event-driven. So I can be doing 5 things at once. My brain is so good, my subconscious is doing stuff without me even realizing, and I'm learning stuff. Now, how does a tool map to that? I agree entirely with this challenge that what we're really trying to do is solve problems. But the thing is, I think we could have built the tool I envisage about 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, of course, technology's moved on, and we're chasing a target that's always moving. But I want to be in a position where I can, if I can envision a test and I run a test, I want it captured, and I want never to be able to touch the system under test without it being recorded. That is, I've always got this proxy in the middle, which captures everything I do. And as I do it, it builds up a model. If I touch an element on a screen, I capture the fact there's an element on the screen. And if I go there from another element, which it already knows about, okay, I've got a link. There's obviously a pathway. And as I do anything on the system of the test, all these pathways can be captured. And as I navigate and explore, I want to talk to the tool And the tool will record what I'm doing, not just text. It will analyze it, and I'll say, what's happening in the logs right now as I do this? What messages are being transferred from my client to the server right now? And maybe I just have a button.
Even more than that, why aren't you just tracking which lines of code as well?
Well, of course, and it's all feasible. I mean, to a degree,
It's doable. We're doing it.
So,
unfortunately, we're using a tool. Damn, got you there.
Anyway, once it's being assembled, I then want to say, right, I've done some stuff. You know where I've been. Give me some hints as to what I should do next. Because then the tool can say, you know what, there's an element here you haven't touched yet. By the way, that's part of the game, for example. Yeah. And I want to be told what the possibilities are. I don't necessarily want to be told what choices to make. Not yet, anyway. I don't think the tools are good enough for that. But I think there's so much we could do without getting into machine learning and artificial intelligence. There's so much more we can do with what we've got, with the technologies we have.
So we're kind of smoke and mirrors for a second for kind of ML and AI, right? And yes, you know, Jason and Tarek are doing great stuff at Test AI, but going back to kind of Hugh's point, you know, I remember last time we were chatting about using, you know, modeling code check-ins to see, you know, where the heat maps for vulnerabilities are on, you know, check-ins versus your visual testing, right? So you can, all these great tools that and libraries you can do to see, you know, what bits of code have changed the most, what areas that maps to on the screen from a model view controller kind of perspective. But, you know, going back to Paul's thing, I can remember the original founders of and I know probably Hugh knows them, but Odin, right, and Odin Axe, and they spent all this time, and obviously the tool never took off, but they were saying time to automate, right? And this idea of how long does it take from I've got a problem to the time that I can fix that problem with a solution, with a tool, a hammer, whatever it may be. And, you know, the other day I was kind of sat there going, you know, there's a command that's been there since Windows 3.11 called PSR, right? You type PSR in your command prompt and it captures every step you do. It captures, it doesn't matter what version of Windows you've got, PSR in the CMD, it comes up, it records the steps, it grabs the graphics, it understands what you clicked, where you did, it starts recording all that information, just like what Paul's just said. And that was in 3.11, sat there with Dr. Watson, who was also doing all the, well, every time you clicked on it, it was fine until it crashed. But, you know, Dr. Watson was sat there to take all the analytics and, well, the log stash, right? It was supposed to be a data dog. It was supposed to pull all that information. So you had the crash analytics. And the thing is, the time it takes to get the tool and go it, you shouldn't really need to be doing it. It's a bit like Perfecto, right? You know, yes, you might be using Appium, but you can throw it to Perfecto, right? The idea is it shouldn't be difficult. It should, the barrier of entry should be low. And, you know, Test Model is a great example. As the barrier of entry is you start with a model. It doesn't need to be an application even existing, right? And the idea is, you, like Paul will have said a million times, and so has Hugh, you know, we're very visual beings. So this idea that we can build something that we can all agree with and visualize, and then we can hook in the technology, whether that's Perfecto, whether that's Appitools, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's request response pairs. It doesn't matter if it's database, ETLs. It literally doesn't matter. It starts with a model. And, you know, I know models are wrong, and Alan Page picked up on that yesterday, and you know, I think we've still got work to go. But, you know, people like James Bark and stuff like that are working with Tricentis and trying to do these session-based tools, which to me just feel like Sprinter and stuff. You can kind of see why people still want them. They want a tool they can download within 30 seconds. They can start doing the discovery. It's hooking into things. In kind of Todd's presentation, which, like I said, massively recommend watching. It's all data, and, you know, you're ingesting that data, whether it is what's going on under the hood, whether it is the back end, the database, whatever else. And the problem is we don't have that in what Paul kind of called this integrated test environment. We have these IDEs and we kind of stay away from those because, well, you know, I'm not Paul Grossman, so I'm not a software developer in tests, and I'm not using, you know, all the functionality that I could do. Like live debugging. But then there's the opposite side. We've got these operational tools that are people like, oh no, you're not allowed to touch my Splunk, you know, part of it, and you know, Signal FX and all the other kind of great stuff, and Phantom going on in the ops landscape. And again, we're not allowed to get our fingers in there and get that information out. And it genuinely feels like we've locked ourselves into a tool stage area. We've put the banner around it of test, and we've limited ourselves and limited our reach. And, you know, we shouldn't be thinking about that anymore. And, you know, we should be thinking about, you know, the use cases, what are happening, you know, Tesla using, Perfecto's labs, real devices, because real users have got problems with that exact device, with that exact firmware, with that exact same, Bluetooth antenna, what is trying to connect to a Model 3. And, you know, we can't use emulation. We can't use, Xcode. We can't use, browser proxies anymore because they're just not realistic enough. We've got bigger challenges. And I think we've just got to start thinking about, expanding our engineering practices past testing into engineering and covering all of the breadth of not just the software development lifecycle, because that is a small part of the rest of the operational model. We need to get into a higher level of business technology at a higher level across the organization. So I know, Hugh, you'll have something to say about that, but, who wants to jump in and kind of say, where is the future? Because I know we've got about 15, 20 minutes. But where is the future? If you're going to have to bet on one horse, where do you think we're going?
If I
Chris,
can jump in.
Oh, Paul.
Go ahead.
Iran spoke first. Sheva, go for it.
It's such a wide question. Everyone wants to talk about it. I will be brief. I think, and I won't say I'm not betting. I hope that I know something about what I'm saying. I think that we reached the level of DevOps, agile software test automation, all these buzzwords, continuous testing, that depends on the persona and their objectives. We are no longer in the, all days where, you have the time, you write the full end, business requirements, and you read them and you explore so much. It's much faster, okay? We can avoid the reality, or we can just face it. And the reality means that you need to be very intelligent, very fast. You need to match the tools, to what the business persona is doing, whether it's the developer, the SDET, the business testers, the PO, whatever. Everyone is working together, right? We're dealing with feature teams in any case. So we need to make sure that we are really enabling them, not disrupting their processes. We are enabling them via tools, whether they are commercial or open source, whatever, AI-based, not AI-based. This is not the question here. We need to make sure that we fit technologies into the processes so they can move much faster and they can create test automation that matches their skill sets, their objectives. You mentioned earlier, Jonathan, about the complexities in testing today. It's just growing. We are dealing with foldable smartphones today on the mobile phones. We are dealing with very advanced web applications today. I don't even talk about desktop. By the way, on a desktop application today, you can run a web/mobile application as well, right? Progressive web runs on desktops as well. So think about the complexities here. Honestly, we don't have the time to really argue about, the models and stuff. They're important. I'm not disregarding them, but we need to be a bit more kind of open-minded to the different tools that are out there. And my bet is, my understanding is that we are going to deal with a wider range of tools that will fit. They will only succeed if they will fit these different agile processes in testing.
Lots of head nodding. Paul Grossman, Chris, you've gone. Go for it, Chris.
I'll be super fast so we can get to Paul. I think the key thing that Iran was talking about just there that's incredibly important is that people are still at the heart of this. The testers are still at the heart of this, making the decisions. And we're just having the doors open more and more to us through groups like this and others to understand, what can we do? You brought up Tesla. Tesla had this need. What do we do? We can't do anything. We don't know what to do, but enablement and understanding what to do and having us be those decision makers, that's where the craft is moving to. Less build it your own, more towards leveraging what's out there and making the best of it. So I'd like to hand it to who's next. I think Paul.
Okay, cool. I'm going to say that, a couple of years ago, in the last, 20 years, we've been talking about image checks and stuff like that. Angie Jones just gave a great presentation with Applitools. That's really made image validation a really serious thing, and it's here today. For the future, I'm looking at tools that are going to make the development of test cases easier for non-technical people. As we saw Mabel basically showing low code demonstrations. There's another tool I work with. It's called Test Rigger, and you just basically type in, click on the OK button. It finds the OK button. It goes and clicks on it. I think I look at that kind of like BDD 3.0. I'm not going to do the cucumber stuff anymore. It's just I'm just going to write out my test cases the way they're written in plain English and let it go forward. The only problem with that is when I first became an engineer, an automation engineer, all the manual testers were afraid I was going to put them out of a job. And yesterday we had Dot Graham, who was giving a great presentation talking about how you need to keep your manual testers to do exploratory testing because automation just isn't really that good at it, and let your automation do the stuff that needs to be repeated correctly over and over again. I'm not looking to try and get anybody, an automation engineer, out of a job. I'm looking to balance that whole thing so that we can have people create test cases quickly and also have them maintainable. That's the future.
So I'll just talk a little bit about, the type of testing. There seems to be a lot of talk about kind of UIs and mobile and all that sort of stuff. But actually, most of the projects that we're bumping into are migration projects, ETL transformation projects. People are trying to move off platform to platforms. They're trying to move to microservices, and that's really where it's at the moment. A mobile phone app, how hard is it? What the hell? An API, how hard is it? But actually, if you're trying to think about where most of the budget goes in terms of what people want is they want to move they keep buying companies, they're trying to consolidate them. 56% of migrations fail. And actually, that's because they kind of do it the wrong way around. They try and come up with the functionality that they want. Then they say, we've got some functionality over here, and we're going to try and squeeze that thing over into this beast over here. I mean, I've just been involved with a massive project with a very large, one of the big three, and it was so badly run, it was a joke. And, we told them within the first 4 days, the whole thing was going to be, many millions of dollars later, it was it was cancelled. Big deal. We knew it was going to happen. It was completely obvious. And actually, it was basically, if you think about how people go about building tests for that, is first of all, you have to understand what the old system does, and you have to understand that by using the data in the system. So instead of build a requirements, then build a transposition from the system. I mean, I remember sitting in a conference room with 35 senior managers from Deutsche Bank trying to explain to me what a share trade did. I don't know how many thousands of pounds that they were being paid per day. And in the end, Paul and I just said, why don't you just let us go and have a look at the data and we'll tell you what your system does. So before you even write a single line of requirement, let's actually analyze the data in your own system, analyze what it does. And this is where most of the testing, this is where most of the people are spending their money and spending their time. And all of this stuff about pretty systems are basically stringing together pieces of string to try and patch up old systems to get data in and out of them. Whereas let's solve that problem of trying to get the data out properly. And actually that means, 70% of your budget is going and you're worrying about, a mobile app. You should be worrying about the 1,700 systems that make that app work.
Yeah.
So speaking about data, I'd love to hear from Todd, who has an immense grasp of the data.
He does, yeah. So let me throw him over. So obviously, agreeing with Hugh, but the whole shift right concept is you need to be able to take what's there already, create a digital twin, or create some kind of blueprint of that system, so you know how it works, and reverse engineer the tests out of that. It just makes sense. We've been talking about it for 5-6 years. But the reason why my brother from another mother, Todd, is going to do this is that it's been hard to get from those 20,000-30,000 systems. Deutsche Bank had 2,600 systems, 10,000 endpoints. I know, as I was global head of automation there. But part of that challenge is it's so complex, and the way you do it is you reverse engineer and learn all of those endpoints, what they're doing, and then really that's an APM. So throwing that over to Todd to kind of say, well, how do we get that data out so we can actually do some really cool stuff with it and save ourselves a whole stack of time?
Yeah, I violently agree with everyone and what they've spoken about, and it's fun. I mean, Iran and I used to hang out in the Boston area together, so again, we're all kind of brethren in this together. I think we're all pointing in the same direction. And I think, Jonathan, your question opening up was, where is this all headed and how are you voting? Well, I voted with my butt in my seat, and as you can see, I'm sitting in Splunk. So at JP Morgan Chase, which is the largest financial institution in the world, I had the opportunity to implement a capability that is exactly what my talk is about. I go through and share with you that product definition and what we delivered with a variety of different tools, but it was really focused on the capabilities that I've heard everybody mention. So really focusing on business results quickly, thinking about, who is that person who's in IT operations, who is that person who's in security. So again, that's what they want, quick results. Those are the different personas. They could really care less what the different tools are. Again, all of the conversations, all of the tools that we've all worked with for the last 25 plus years have all played a very important role in us delivering that value to business, to the IT ops, to security, all of the above. Where I've seen a choking point, especially in highly distributed environments, et cetera, but let's not forget about the mainframes, is this data piece. So, everything that I've been hearing is often a lot of exhaust data. So again, whether it's coming out of your environments, it's coming out of different tools, these are all exhaust elements that are there. In addition, we've all got our pipelines. So think about like a CI/CD pipeline. What type of information can we pull out of there from your lower environments all the way up to your production environments? And again, looking at whether it's performance, security, functional, automated, it's all there. And then telemetry. So how do you bring those in? How do you look across them? How do you correlate them? Dare I suggest things like AI and machine learning would also come into play there, and there are some organizations that do this very well. And then the last one, which I have kind of stepped out a little bit, but again, thinking, and again, I've done large agile transformations at very large companies. I've done DevOps, I've done the SRE role and very large organizations, but ultimately, all this digital transformation work, again, I love your quote of the 50-some% fail, right? But again, all of the work that we've been doing over the years, I believe the value is realized when it comes to the automated orchestration. And yes, I was accused of being the guy talking Star Trek when it was before, this was even possible. Guess what? It is possible today to have automated run books and playbooks ready to go, that when something happens or your predictive analytics and machine learning says this is going to happen, that you can simply trigger that rather than waiting for one of your operators to observe it on the knock screen and have to manually run that script. So that's what I'll be covering off on. But again, when I look at kind of what's coming, it's this data to everything platform. It's, thinking about, things like, we just released this thing called Splunk Observability Cloud. You guys can learn more about that if you care to. But again, I think on the whole, as you think about your data, thinking about that exhaust data, the pipeline data, the telemetry, and then ultimately, how do you get to that automated orchestration faster so that you don't have to worry about, oh, we just had an outage. It's more of a notification of, we just avoided even having an outage because we saw this starting to happen, which we've seen that happen before and we've resolved the issue. Again, it could be, I've got examples I could point to all day long where, a pod on Kubernetes is not looking healthy. Well, why is that? Well, I had a build that actually was throwing more error rates than what I've seen in that prior build. Okay, well, how did I know that? Well, it's right here. Okay, what do we do from an automated perspective? Do you roll forward? Do you roll back? Well, guess what? You roll back in that scenario. Can that be in your automated playbook? Absolutely. Why not? So again, that's it. My perspective, again, this is one person's perspective, but I voted with getting up out of my seat in my prior employer and moving to this one a little over a year ago. I'm now in the seat where I'm able to help directly influence that with hands-on keyboard and coding as capabilities.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. There's the end. I know Paul he's itching to say something, but actually I'm going to save him for the prize draws, which we're just about to enter in. And I'm going to obviously say a massive thank you, because he is a grumpy old kid. I know that because he drank me under the table on Thursday night and I had a hangover for 3 days. But Hugh, do you want to say something? Do you want to have a few words of wisdom in there?
I think that's fine. I think we've covered quite a lot.
Thanks. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love you all equally, but you know, thanks so much for making Test Festival just so festival-y. So you know, I don't know if that's a real word, but thanks you, thanks
Cheers
Bob
now.
DeCaprio,
Thanks, guys.
Paul Grossman, thanks Iran, thanks Mr. Trimpersaurus, and let's go straight into the prize draw for tonight, because I know we've got two really important sessions that I want to get. The next one's going to be for Iran, which I'm going to keep Iran on actually, and if you can want to rejoin, you can also give away the official Curiosity one if you've got a bit of time.